Our mom was taken in the dark of night from her bed.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Podcaster Megan Kelly noted the detail that Savannah Guthrie shared, adding, "No one has ever said that before. In fact, the sheriff said it early on and then took it back and said he didn't mean to say that and wasn't confirming whether or not she was taken from her bed." Now, I really don't know how you can say that has never been said before when that is exactly what the sheriff said very early on. I mean, we knew this detail as early as February 2nd. That's day 2. On day 2, we knew that Nancy was taken from her bed. And here's the headline we have from that same day. Then going back to the article from Men's Journal, Hamilton Security Group founder James Hamilton, who appeared on Kelly's podcast, also brought up Savannah mentioning the bed. Now, is she just saying that as if to say, you know, sometimes in kidnappings, like a JonBenet Ramsey taken from her bed type of deal, and it's almost like something you would say, Hamilton told Kelly. I'm not sure why this Hamilton dude on Kelly's show is referring to JonBenet being kidnapped from her bed. That's very likely wrong on both counts. She wasn't kidnapped, and we know she wasn't in her bed late that night because she had undigested pineapple in her stomach. And this changed everything because it suggested that whoever supposedly kidnapped JonBenet, who supposedly fed her pineapple, was someone that JonBenet trusted. Otherwise, JonBenet wouldn't have eaten it. And so it was someone who JonBenet knew, not some unknown phantom intruder. And that actually led John Ramsey to speculate that maybe it was Santa Claus that fed JonBenet pineapple. So you've got this expert on Kelly's show who's wrong on both counts on another case that he thinks is intertextual when it's not. And, you know, JonBenet's bed doesn't even look slept in, and her pillow was actually downstairs on the kitchen counter. Also, we do know that Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos made a similar claim in a previous interview. I can't think of the last time where in the middle of the night in someone's bed, an 84-year-old woman disappeared on us, he added to NBC. Now, by the way, we're going to deal with a case just like that happened in Australia just in the past week that is chillingly intertextual to this one in a moment. Anyway, he said, "We believe she was taken out of the home against her will, and that's how this investigation is moving." I don't know about you, but it sometimes feels like the reporting out there is coming from a confederacy of dunces. I think it's one thing when bozos are reporting in their bozo way, and obviously the people who are also bozos like that, but it's completely different when people that you'd expect more from report in a way that's really, I think, kind of moronic. Basically, if you think about it, wow, is it such rocket science to say at that time of the night probably someone would be abducted from their bed, and that's now big news 25 days later. And I think the problem we are dealing with is that most people out there have no idea what a real kidnapping looks or feels like, and that includes ransoms and ransom notes. Very early on, it ought to have been obvious that there were no legit ransoms in this case because no contact information was provided and no proof of life. Also, you don't contact the news media with a ransom note. So what does a true blue, real, raw kidnapping of an elderly person look like right now? These are actually as rare as hen's teeth, but as it so happens, a case has come up and has actually been resolved. The victim found, the kidnappers caught, all done, chuff, within all of this happened within the 25-day timeline of the Guthrie case. You probably had 2 weeks handicap, essentially, and they still solved that case with time to spare. You really can't get more intertextual than this particular case or contemporary. So let's have a look at it and examine it and see how the Guthrie case is the same and different. And it really is quite fascinating.
Same, but different.
But before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. By the way, I post all videos onto my X account, so if you want to also get a heads up for videos and a little bit of commentary that is posted there, head to @CrimeRocket on X. Tomorrow, by the way, I'll be posting a video on the motive, just a different take on the motive of Brian Koberger, where we'll be examining photos of the crime scene. And then we'll also be dealing with the cure or the solution to enmeshment that's dealing with the Nick Reiner case, so look out for that. If you're finding my analysis worthwhile, I noticed there hasn't been a thanks contribution in a while. If you want to express your appreciation, please do hit the thanks button. These cases really do take quite a lot out of me. It takes quite a lot to research and write them. So if you appreciate that, please do hit the thanks button and let's get started. All right, so according to CNN, across the world from the expansive US police search for the missing Nancy Guthrie, a family in Australia were also pleading for help to find their 85-year-old grandfather, who police say was mistakenly kidnapped from his modest home in suburban Sydney and later murdered. Chris Baghsarian, a widower who lived alone, was ripped from his bed at 5 a.m. on unlucky Friday the 13th of February by numerous assailants who detectives believe were intending to target another man. So this happened 13 days, almost 2 weeks, after the abduction of Nancy Guthrie. Just 11 days after the kidnapping on February 24th, yesterday, so 11 days after the kidnapping of this Australian guy, it was already all over. The victim was found, the kidnappers were caught, they had also found the vehicle, they had looked into CCTV footage, and well, that is what a real kidnapping tends to feel like. Also, a ransom demand was sent out, and so on and so on. And so a real kidnapping starts suddenly, it involves urgency, and it's over quickly. The kidnappers don't want to waste time and money babysitting or prolonging the situation unnecessarily. In fact, nobody does. This case was also a botched kidnapping in the sense that the kidnappers appeared to have targeted the wrong person. Something went wrong. And how did they deal with that? Although they could have simply released their prisoner unharmed, no harm, no foul, that would mean a great risk to them being identified because the victim could now become a star witness. And I don't think it is even quite as simple as that. Even if they wanted to release him, there were probably criminal powers that be that would have told them, no ways, this is how we're going to deal with this situation. Anyway, in this case, the kidnappers murdered the victim and dumped his body on the outskirts of Sydney, all within about 40 hours of the kidnapping. That's virtually on the second day. That is how quickly these cases resolve themselves. And if you look at this graphic, I think it's from The Guardian, it gives you just a very quick glimpse at the major milestones in terms of the geography and in terms of the timeline. Now, the perpetrators also set the vehicle, a grey Toyota Corolla, which they used in the kidnapping, on fire. There was actually another vehicle that was used, an SUV. I'm not sure what happened to that. You can actually see that one on CCTV. And that was on Wednesday, February 16. So that vehicle was already torched, disposed of, just as early as day 3 in their crime timeline. And they did this obviously in a desperate bid to get rid of any evidence that could link back to them. Fortuitously, they were able to recover evidence, the police. Now, back to CNN. I suspect that the intended target was going to be kidnapped where a ransom for the money was going to be asked. That's according to Detective Acting Superintendent Andrew Marks, what he told reporters on Wednesday. And some information in terms of that did come out subsequent to him saying that. So who was the intended target? Well, according to The Guardian, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation has reported that the intended target may have been a relative of a man linked to a well-known Sydney crime family. According to CNN, New South Wales police immediately alerted the kidnappers to their mistake in successive press conferences, urging them to abandon the grandfather at a safe location. Instead, a video emerged of the older man tied up at a location later found to be an abandoned and derelict property in Dural on the outskirts of Sydney, some 20 kilometers, that's about 12 miles from his home. So that's something we might want to look at in the Nancy Guthrie case. Look at a circumference of around about 12 miles. That might be something that is similar in this case. In other words, the kidnappers demonstrated proof of life and certainly proof that they had someone in their custody in this Australian incident. Now, according to CNN, by the time police had identified and searched the location, Baghsarian was gone, meaning he had died. The 85-year-old was found no longer alive. And this was where they found him, also not far from an adjacent road. Then it took a matter of days, about a week, to track, trace, and arrest the suspects. What do you think they used as evidence? Do you think they used DNA? Do you think they used fingerprints? Do you think they used polygraphs? Or do you think they used CCTV footage, digital evidence? Well, have a look at this. CCTV captures movement in the street before Chris Baghsarian was abducted. Here's another one. Mark said the men in custody were identified via the canvassing of CCTV footage. Where do you think they canvassed that from? Also, CCTV footage captured several men getting out of the car and disappearing into the house. Where do you think that came from? And here is that CCTV footage of the kidnapping taken from a home security camera right across the street. Now, we're going to play that while I continue talking about this case. According to CNN, less than 24 hours after Baghsarian's body was found, right? Less than 1 day after the body was found, police swooped on 2 properties, arresting 2 men aged 24 and 29, and they seized items they say connect them to his murder.
2 men are expected to be charged with the kidnap and murder of 85-year-old Chris Baghsarian. Police today confirming remains discovered at Pitttown are of the innocent grandfather.
According to CNN, video released by police showed tactical squads pulling up in SUVs to a large suburban home in Sydney's outskirts, jumping the fence and banging on the front door before breaking in.
Police! Search warrant! Open the door!
Responsible. Tonight we can reveal just who those men are.
Police! Search warrant! Open the door! Any movement? Nothing. Crack it.
Daylight breaks as police break down a door.
Get in.
The Raptor squad storming this Kenthurst home in search of Jerry Andrews. The 29-year-old cuffed and swarmed by officers as he's led to the car, pants around his ankles.
According to CNN, a woman can be heard screaming, and one wonders whether she's going to be part of the people arrested in this case. Later, officers escort a barefoot disabled man to a waiting police van. A separate raid led to the arrest of another man who's expected to face similar charges of kidnapping and murder.
The raid, one of 3 this morning, the second just 7.5 kilometres away at a home in Castle Hill. 24-year-old Daniel Stevens shirtless as he's put in the back of a police car.
Nice going, Australian police. According to CNN, Wheel alleged in court that these men participated in a joint criminal enterprise with other persons to kidnap Mr. Baghsarian, Mark said. Police suspect that at least 3 people are involved in the fatal abduction, and they expect to make further arrests. Now, unlike the likes of the Ramseys, the McCanns and Amanda Knox of late, the family haven't tried to insert themselves into the media narrative at every turn. They haven't hired lawyers or PR people, and no one has been daft enough to suggest any of them are suspects in Baghsarian's kidnapping. Instead, they've asked for privacy. According to CNN, in the days after his disappearance, the man's family released a statement describing the situation as a surreal nightmare. Well, it really must be. We are struggling to make sense of the fact that he has been taken and that our family has been caught up in something that has nothing to do with us, they said.
Same, but different. But still same.
So let's put a list on screen of what is the same. Well, it's senior individual, an 84-year-old and an 85-year-old. They lived alone, both of them. They were both snatched from their beds. Both of these crimes happened very early in the morning, the one at around 2 a.m., the other one at 5 a.m. CCTV was used to track and trace the suspects. No ransom demand ultimately received, and I think we should add by the right person, and then it seems to be a botched operation in some way. In the one case, that leads to a very quick arrest. In the other, it doesn't. And so what is different? Well, video evidence was provided. Now, this is from neighbors across the road, and that's a big difference here is the urban fabric in the one case is obviously a lot denser. It's the suburbs, whereas in Arizona, there's a lot more sort of interference in terms of visibility to the road, and it's a much thinner urban fabric. Then also the Australia kidnapping incident took less than 3 minutes, right? The Arizona abduction took more than 41 minutes. The body was found in Australia. The vehicle was found in Australia. A ransom demand was communicated in Australia. I think they wanted $50 million. There were multiple perpetrators in Australia. I don't believe that there are in this case, in Nancy Guthrie. The suspects were caught in Australia. The case was concluded quickly in Australia. And then also, Nancy is not a case of mistaken identity, or was she? According to CNN, kidnappings, especially involving strangers and strangers kidnapping seniors, are rare in Australia. They're rare everywhere. Even more so when victims have no prior history that would suggest they were a target. That is according to criminologist Clark Jones, a visiting fellow at the Australian National University. In past situations, people are released once they realize they've got the wrong person. Now, more typical kidnappings that don't involve children include criminals who kidnap other criminals in the form of a cartel or gang-related activity. According to ABC News Australia, the ABC understands police believe the kidnapper's intended target was a relative of Sydney businessman Dimitri Stepanyan, who lives in the North Ryde area. Mr. Stepanyan is a convicted armed robber with alleged links to the Alameddine crime family, who police believe control the city's drug trade. Police sources have told the ABC they are investigating whether the people responsible sent messages to Mr. Stepanyan demanding $50 million for his release. And you'd imagine that money was perhaps profits that they thought would come from the drugs trade. Messages sent by the ABC show the kidnappers learned they had taken the wrong person during this exchange. Detectives have said that Mr. Baghsarian's family never received any demand for ransom or communication from his captors. So what do you think? Is this a real kidnapping, I mean, of Nancy Guthrie? If so, has the abductor targeted the right person? If something was botched in this case, what was it? Well, I hope you found this informative, insightful, and food for thought. If you have, please do let me know in the comments. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.